Coming up on today's episode of It's Called Soccer, we are joined by the Fulham and USMNT national team left-back, Antonee Robinson. You look like you were born to be a full-back, Anthony. Was that always the plan?
No, I don't think anyone started as a full-back.
Jeez.
We're also going to be talking a bit about Vinicius Junior and the Galacticos at Real Madrid.
I don't think I would be ever able to mark Vinicius Junior. I think I would really struggle with him.
We discuss Messi, Miami and the Club World Cup.
It's not just about owning a football club for Bex, it's about how he owns a football club. It's about everything being absolutely perfect.
Plus, is La Liga heading to Florida before Christmas?
It looks like La Liga know that they are behind the Premier League. Everybody is, and this is maybe a way that they think, okay, we can gain a little bit of ground.
And we're going to preview the big one, the game where Jamie and Gary will be at on Sunday, Arsenal against Liverpool.
I really am steadfast on this. They should have beat Bournemouth with 10 men, and they should go and beat Liverpool on Sunday if they're serious about winning the league.
And the guys also discuss if they could actually play in the Premier League right now.
Gary Neville could play alongside Virgil van Dijk for 10 minutes for Liverpool. This is going to go viral, this episode.
Hi everybody, welcome to episode 6 of It's Called Soccer. Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville, Rebecca Lowe with you. We have got a ton to get to. Jamie, I know you put in a complaint, so this week it is your Peloton moment of the week. What have you picked out for us?
I've gone for Vinicius Junior's hat-trick in the Champions League game against Borussia Dortmund for Real Madrid. Completely turned the game in the second half. It was a brilliant game. It felt like a knockout game, certainly when you saw the reactions at the end of the game, even for a club like Real Madrid. And I think with the Ballon d'Or ceremony being, I think, sometime next week, it just felt apt that he got the hat-trick, because it just feels like he's the odds-on favourite to be the Ballon d'Or winner for this year.
Yeah, Ballon d'Or's happening on Monday. Do you think, Gary, he'll be a shoo-in for that?
Well, you never know as a shoe-in, because you don't know. I wouldn't have expected Messi to win it, to be fair. Was it last year when he did? But I think that
he only won the World Cup, didn't he?
I don't think he did in that year. I think it was not in the previous year. Anyway, we'll not get caught up in sort of. We got caught up in the details. No, he absolutely could win it. I mean, there's needed to be a change of the guard. Obviously, Messi and Ronaldo have dominated it for years, and then you were thinking it was going to be Erling Haaland or Mbappe. But Vinicius Junior, I have to say, he's world class. He's. I look at the way in which he plays against Kyle Walker, and I think. I don't think I would be ever able to mark Vinicius Junior. I think I would really struggle with him. I think, and I look at Kyle Walker and I think I've marvelled at how he's done against him at times in the last couple of years or so. But I honestly think I would struggle like mad. I don't think I have any answer for him.
Do you think Real Madrid have made a mistake buying Mbappe?
I mean, they went through this, didn't they? Obviously, with regards to the Galacticos having the best players in the world all come to them. I thought Real Madrid were in a little bit of a mess 4 or 5 years ago. But what he's done in terms of amassing the players that he has, the young players that he has, and bringing them through, he's actually brilliant at building squads. And I think that they may have made a mistake in some ways because it upset the apple cart. Bellingham looks like he's walking around the pitch a little bit. Too many egos, too many sort of personalities and characters that think they should be the star man. That can happen.
I actually think Real Madrid in the transfer market have been the best club over the last 10 years. That's why they've been successful, not just because they're the biggest team. They buy the best young players in Europe. They sell really well. You look at what they did to Man United with Varane and Casemiro, even selling Ronaldo to Juventus all those years. But they make sure they get good money when they've got the best years out of someone, and they buy the right players. Bringing Mbappe in, it almost feels like a throwback to what they were maybe 15 years ago, where they just buy who they wanted and then try and make it work somehow. And they've almost got the two best left-sided players in world football, and it just feels daft to have two of the best players in the world in the same position. I know Mbappe's playing up front, but it's not his best position. He's at his best on the left, and I'm not sure he can ever fully show that he's the best player in the world, Mbappe, if he's playing centre-forward.
In the Champions League final, Caro, remind me, because I did watch it, but they had Rodrigo, obviously, and Vinicius, didn't they? And then they had like Bellingham sort of like playing sort of a little bit deeper, didn't they? And then
he was in that position, almost like the top of a diamond, and then Rodrigo almost like an inside right. But they're still playing Rodrigo, and they're putting Mbappe through the middle. So it's almost a little bit more like a 4-3-3 conventional, what most teams play. Yeah. But it just, I just feel sorry watching Mbappe. Even speaking to Thierry Henry, he tells me, he's a good centre forward, but maybe not a great one. And he's just at his best when he's on that left side.
I'm surprised at Thierry on that one, because if you look at sort of like Thierry and the way he played centre forward, where he would drift out to the left and then Robert Pires would come inside, wouldn't he, and sort of drift into positions. I don't know why between them they can't. I don't know why between them. It has to be ego. They will work. They will work it out that when Mbappe drifts out there, Vinicius has to sort of either come inside a little bit, and Thierry Henry did that better than anybody, didn't he, for Arsenal?
Oh, he was the best at it, and that was. But Pires was a player who sort of liked to come inside. I still think Vinicius likes to go on the outside. And listen, we both know what it's like when you've got two players who really want to play in a certain position, and we say they can just swap in the game. And when they swapped, they won't look at each other. They'll just stay in the position. One of them who's got the position that they like will just avoid making eye contact and just stay in that role. So I can imagine Mbappe finding himself on the left and just stay in there.
But do you know something? You'll have had this during your career where you have two great players who don't accept each other. So at United there was Rooney and Ronaldo. They both accepted each other. They both accepted that. Rooney in particular would say if Ronaldo's going to come inside and fancy 20 minutes at centre forward, Rooney would then fill into a position because he was. He just would do that. That's the way in which he thought about things. And I'm trying to think of examples where you've seen players where I think Thierry had it at Arsenal at one point with Van Persie, where I felt like there wasn't that connection between the pair of them. I don't know whether that's the case, but it felt like when they were both on the pitch together that they weren't just quite in sync with one another. There wasn't almost like a subservient one.
You know what I felt, Dan? It's not just about attacking players. It's what you're talking about is someone's got to know he's the main man. And I go back to Man United, actually. I always felt that when Veron signed and you had him and Roy in the centre of midfield, and I always believe there's only one player whose job it is to demand the ball off the back four. Everything goes through him. Now, Veron wanted to be that, but that was Roy Keane's job. So in the end, one of them ends up not doing what they should be doing. And that's why I go back to sort of Vinicius Junior and Mbappe. Mbappe will be on the bench at the end of that game. It's a massive, huge night for Real Madrid. They've come back from 2-0 down. But all the talk's about Vinicius Junior. And when you come as the best player in the world, a fella who's won the World Cup, scored a hat-trick in the World Cup, it's hard to feel that joy at the end of the game that everyone else feels like. Because you're looking at Vinicius Junior thinking, that should be me. I'm the star. I should be the man everybody's talking about. So there is that problem for Real Madrid. But listen, if anyone can sort it out, Ancelotti can.
Well, I was going to ask you just quickly, Jamie, do you think, despite your reservations maybe about them buying Mbappe, do you think that'll hold them back from winning their 16th European trophy?
Listen, they're always the favourites because they're Real Madrid, but they've had a lot of luck in the years that they've won it. I must say that, but anybody does who wins the Champions League, because we've always got to remember it's not always the best team in Europe who wins. And I would argue Manchester City for a long period of time have been the best team in Europe, but have only come away with one Champions League. It's a knockout football. You need a little bit of luck. I go back to Courtois' performance against Liverpool a few years ago. He was man of the match in the final. Last season they knocked Man City out, I think in a penalty shootout. But I mean, Man City completely dominated the game. Real Madrid were camped in their own box, but they have an unbelievable ability, Real Madrid, to get across the line. And the evidence was there again in midweek. Completely outplayed by Borussia Dortmund, 2-0 at half time. Carlo Ancelotti doesn't even make a substitution at half time, doesn't panic, sticks with the team that he's got, and then they go and win 5-2. And just that's you keep looking, watching we're doing the game for CBS, and you keep looking at each other just thinking it's just Real Madrid. That's the only way you can explain it.
Yeah, that was your moment of the week, brought to you by Peloton. Right, you mentioned Messi in relation to the Ballon d'Or a couple of years ago. He's had quite the week. Inter Miami chaps in Major League Soccer have had quite the week. We're just going to get onto that now because they made history this week by finishing the season with 74 points, which essentially technically makes them the best Major League Soccer team ever. That is now the new record in terms of points. They beat New England Revolution this week 6-2, and Messi came off the bench and got a hat-trick inside 11 minutes, which was ridiculous. This project, Gary, the Messi project, the Inter Miami project under David Beckham, I mean, it makes everything worthwhile in terms of the money that's gone into it, doesn't it now?
Oh, I mean, this is what I think, Beck's vision was from day one when he took over this club. And he actually, when I look back now and think about Beck's, when he set off on this journey, I don't know when it was that he did the deal with, when he went to LA Galaxy. It was many, many years ago now, and the thought process behind it and where he's got it to. I was lucky enough to go over a couple of years ago and see the believe it or not, temporary stadium that's been built and the training ground. It's absolutely spectacular what's happening. And you've obviously got now, I think, is it Miami Freedom Park or the sort of the new development that's going to be built where the new stadium's going to be built, which is, I think, more central in the city. You've got obviously arguably the greatest player of all time, whether you like Ronaldo or Messi, we'll remove for this conversation, but there's no doubt he's one of the greatest players of all time playing there, along with Busquets, along with Luis Suarez, who's still sensational when you watch the goals that he scores week in, week out, and Alba. It's absolutely brilliant, and there's no doubt he's got now I know he always wanted to own a football club, but it's not just about owning a football club for Bex. It's about how he owns a football club. It's about everything being absolutely perfect. The training ground is spectacular. The temporary stadium is something that, to be honest with you, I was like, why are you moving from this? This is unbelievable. It's fantastic. And then you look at the actual team now that's been built and what they're doing. This is probably 10, 15 years of work and thought and vision, and it takes time. Obviously, the first few years were a challenge, just establishing things, but it's absolutely outstanding what he's done. And like you say, this is definitely the project, the idea that he had.
You were in Miami, Jamie, the other week. Is it Messi Mania everywhere you walk?
Yes, it is. I mean, you can see the effect that he has, but he would have that effect anywhere, even if he went to, obviously he was at one of the biggest clubs in the world in Barcelona and then went to PSG. Anywhere he went would raise the sort of levels of, interest in the game. But Miami is a real, everywhere I was walking in Miami, it felt like it wasn't people speaking English, it was, foreign accents. And obviously, Rebecca, you'll know better than me, that part of the world. So is that one of the reasons why Messi went to Miami?
Big Hispanic community, lots of immigrants from South America. So yes, very much he will feel at home there for sure. Yeah, so exactly. So he feels very much at home. I was speaking to the taxi driver on the way to on the airport on the way home, and he was talking about into Miami and the effect that it had on the city. But he was talking about they actually play the games outside Miami at the moment. Is that Fort Lauderdale? Yeah. Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, yeah. And he was talking, as Gary's just mentioned there, the new stadium and that. But I mean, this situation of them getting into this world. Are you taking us there, or am I, Rebecca? Because this is really winding me up.
Jamie, I know it is. We talked about it just before we started recording, and I said, hold your thoughts because we're going to get onto that. Let's go there straight away. This is the FIFA Club World Cup we're talking about, everybody, which is in 2025. And now, what we have to remember is that Inter Miami have won the Supporters' Shield, which is essentially the same as winning the league. But of course, winning the league in Major League Soccer is not winning the league like it is in the UK, because you have to win the playoffs to be the MLS champion. And Inter Miami, of course, going to go into the playoffs now, could easily get knocked out because it's a knockout tournament, it's playoffs. They may not become MLS champions. They are Supporters' Shield. And it's so funny because nobody remembers Supporters' Shield champions. No one cares despite them being the best team over the course of the season, it's all about who wins the playoffs. So therefore, we all thought, looking ahead to the FIFA Club World Cup next summer in America in 2025, that whoever won at Major League Soccer in terms of the playoffs would be that team that would go into the Club World Cup to represent the United States. But no, because Gianni Infantino said this while he was celebrating, by the way, in Miami. You have shown that in the United States, he's talking to the club, Inter Miami, you are consistently the best club on the field of play. Therefore, I am proud to announce that as one of the best clubs in the world, you are deserved participants in the new FIFA Club World Cup 2025, which surely is just a way of getting Messi into the Club World Cup, which at the moment, Jamie, is struggling.
Yes, it is. And Infantino over these last few years actually makes me at times think that I'd like to have Sepp Blatter back. Honestly, I'm not far away from that with this fella who's come in. Obviously, we all know that the corruption in the past, but this guy, and it just frustrates me when I see how people get into these, positions of power and the decisions that they make, and it's all just for politics and money. And this is just to try and ramp a tournament up that he and the people around him have created. And the reason they've created it is because we know there's always friction between FIFA and UEFA. FIFA's baby as the World Cup generates hundreds of millions, but it's only every 4 years. The Champions League, I think what we'd all agree is, for me, the highest level of football every season in football, and generates a huge amount of money. But UEFA get that every year season. So there's almost this idea now, FIFA, we've got to catch up with UEFA, not think about what the players need I mean, this FIFA World Club Cup, it just, for whatever reason, even in the past, when, I played in the final, Gary's played in the final, Liverpool teams of the past played in the final, the World Club final against the South American team. Then they tried to make it slightly bigger, where you'd maybe play 2 or 3 games. But it's never really caught the imagination of the world. It just hasn't. And this tournament can't. Because you can't say you're the best team in the world in club football if the tournament's every 4 years. I mean, Chelsea are in it because they won the Champions League like 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, so if they win it, they're the best club team in the world, but they finished like 6th in the Premier League. It's just a nonsense. It's a way of trying to make money. And as I actually thought, it looks to me like players and clubs are actually going against this competition. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody actually strikes, whether that's a club or players refuse to go, because you can't accept, I think, as a player, having 3 out of 4 seasons where your summer's taken with football. We get the Euros or the Copa America and the World Cup, but the summers either side of them have to be free for the players to recuperate and rest.
Yeah, I mean, look, I played in 2 World Club Cup finals, which is obviously the winners of the Champions League versus the winners of the South America competition. But then I did play in the inaugural World Club Cup in 2000.
I mean, they need to change the name, by the way, because nobody knows if it's Club World Cup or World Club Cup.
No,
that's the first thing.
You'll remember the one that we played in 2000. Yeah. I remember it because I gave 2 really bad goals away against Vasco da Gama, but we actually didn't play in the FA Cup that year, and Manchester United were heavily criticised. And that competition, to be honest with you, was heavily criticised around that time and never took off. Which was slightly different than the competition, because we played in that, but we'd also played in the traditional World Club Cup against, I think it was Palmeiras, actually, I think in the December or something like that, over in Japan, and we won that. So, yeah, I mean, we were part of an experiment many years ago. I think there are 2 things here. One is, will this competition take off? I think that they're going to have to be persistent and do it over a long period of time, because I think competitions need history and tradition to take off. I'm not quite sure there's a love for it in this country. I think it's probably come too quickly after Super League for people to fall in love with another concept that's designed by, to be fair, governing bodies like FIFA. I think, to be fair, in respect of the Miami situation, I mean, we should be supportive in some ways of the team that's best over the season being the one that actually wins, because that's what we believe in our country, that the marathon and the endurance of a league and who finishes top at the end shouldn't then finish in playoffs. So the fact that Miami have been the most outstanding team, not just in this season, but any season with 74 points, is logical to us to then think that obviously they would go in. The problem is you've got Infantino, who, to be honest with you, isn't transparent. So if he'd said 12 months ago or 6 months ago, the team that finishes the very top of the league at the end of the season will get there, I don't think anybody would have had a problem with it. I don't think anybody has a problem with it, because the
He's
reality...
only done it because Messi's playing for Inter Miami. That is the only reason.
No,
he was waiting to see whether they won the league or he won the play. He's basically given himself a get out. He wanted Messi in the competition. It's also, if Messi was not at Inter Miami, there's not a chance he'd have said that.
Cara, we know that. I'm accepting that. My point is with Infantino, if he'd made the announcement 6 months ago before the league started that the winner of the actual league would be the one that goes in, because we want to measure the best team over the season, not the best in the knockout ways, we'd have probably all said that's logical. We must do, because that's how we play football in our country. That's how you win the league. So the fact he's done it here now is just typical Infantino. It is just typical the way in which he acts, which is unilaterally, with, to be fair, the power that he has. Look, I'm arguing at this moment in time and debating at this moment in time about independent regulation in football in our country, because I genuinely believe, I am concerned about the state of the game. It's beautiful to watch. The Champions League's amazing. The Premier League's amazing. I watch the EFL every week as well. I love it to bits. But the governance of the game, to be honest with you, is stretching away from its original roots. And this is another example of it, where a guy can just make a decision unilaterally like that. You know, I actually agree with the principle of the best team over a season being in the competition. I believe that. But obviously in America, you do it differently.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to say that you're absolutely right. Had Infantino said that 6 months ago, Europe and the UK, everybody would have said, yeah, logical. Nobody in America would have done, Gary. Everybody would have been like, hey, nobody even knows who won the Sports Shield last season. It's so difficult for us to understand that, and it's taken me 11 years to even get my head around the fact that no one really cares who wins the league, but they really don't. It is all about MLS champions. So I think you're right from your perspective, but I think from the American perspective, just quickly, Gary, on what Jamie said, do you foresee a possible strike? Could you see players? I mean, obviously the financial people in clubs want this, but everybody else in the club doesn't. Do you foresee that?
So, a couple of things from someone who, to be fair, liked to instigate strikes from time to time when I was a player.
Red Nev.
I don't think we've got a player that is strong enough or can bring other people on the journey with them that would actually instigate a strike that would mean that the players could do it. I don't think there is a player or group of 3 or 4 players. You would need something, Rebecca, like, you would need, it sounds crazy, you would need, I'm not going to use United, I'm going to use Barcelona. You would need, say, when Barcelona had Messi, Piqué, Puyol, Iniesta, Xavi, to corral together, then go to their compatriots at Real Madrid, then go to somebody at United that they know, Liverpool that they know, and basically grab a group of players together to say, right, okay, us 40, by the way, we're not going to take part in X, Y, or Z. I don't think there is anybody with the money that these lads are earning has got the will or want to bring that together. So then you're talking about the clubs having their players flogged in tournaments, and they feel as though their primary tournaments, their priority tournaments, are being damaged. So if it's going to come from anywhere, it's going to come from the clubs. I don't believe it'll come from the players, and it'll take a lot for clubs to instigate strike against associations and against organisations.
Well, there's no doubt there's players definitely in conversations right now with FIFA Pro, who are the organisation to for the players, if you like, and the well-being of players. And I mean, also, I think at the end of the season, is there not the Nations League finals as well? I mean, where this fits in, for me, it's not just having to go with FIFA. I think this Nations League stuff is an absolute waste of time as well. I mean, I'm watching England or internationals games going on, and at times, and I'm a huge lover of football, I don't know if England are playing a friendly, a European qualified, or a game in the Nations League. I have no idea at times when the international games come round. So if you're a top player and you've got the end of a season, I think the Champions League final, I think, is at the start of June or the last day of May. You then have the Nations League finals, and then you could be in the World Club Championship, and then
and then you're going back into a Premier League season or whichever country you're in, and then you're going straight into a World Cup the following summer. Okay, just a quick line, because we send our best wishes to your brother Gary after a torrid night for Portland Timbers last night, losing to Vancouver by 5-0 at home. We watched it here. My little boy had a big banner saying "Go Portland," and by half time, I think it was, what was it?
Yeah,
it was by half time.
To be honest, I'm devastated for him, to be honest with you. I got up actually at 3:15 this morning. I went to bed at 9 o'clock and thought, and my body clock will wake me up at 6 hours. I know it always does. And I got up for 3:30, which it kicked off, I think, about 20-4 in the end. And obviously there were 3 goals quite quickly in the first half that, I watched, and then I thought, oh no. And then basically sort of like decided, I thought, it's not going to go well, and then saw it was 5-0 at the end. I was devastated for him, but ultimately I think that it's his first year there. I think the target was to get into the playoffs, and then hopefully next year they can improve upon that and do better. But yeah, it was a big blow.
Yeah, and it just didn't look like Portland Timbers that we've seen all season. That was the big
No, it was really strange. Even from the very first few minutes of the game, it felt like it wasn't quite right. And sometimes, look, that happens in big matches. It was obviously a one-off game. I mean, look, the psychology of you play all season and then you have this playoff game. And I shouldn't be... It is quite familiar to me in our family, because believe it or not, it's the same in netball in England. That's what you do. You play all season, then the top 4 go into 2 semi-finals and 2 finals. A playoff weekend whereby the Super League winners in netball actually are the winners of the actual mini competition at the end. So it actually is something that, my sister's done it 2 or 3 times with Manchester Thunder. But it feels like really unfair that you win the league over like 6 months, and all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden you have this position whereby Miami could be out in a week or so. You know what I mean? And they've got 74 points. It's madness. But that's the way we do it. You do it over there. There are sports in our country that do it as well.
More news actually coming out of Florida, that La Liga are thinking of having Barcelona against Atletico Madrid being played at the Hard Rock Stadium in Florida this December. The La Liga president was like, we've got to do it soon. Jamie, thoughts on that?
I'd be intrigued to watch it. I think my view would be a little bit different if it was the Premier League. I think I would be against that happening. But there is also the little bit in the back of my mind that's thinking, okay, are La Liga going one step ahead of the Premier League in terms of this? And are we going to end up in this situation eventually? Are we kicking the can down the road in the Premier League in terms of saying we're not doing this right now, and this is something that we are going to do in 5 or 10 years? So it looks like La Liga know that they are behind the Premier League. Everybody is, and this is maybe a way that they think, okay, we can gain a little bit of ground on the Premier League. It'd be really interesting to know what the Barcelona Atletico Madrid fans feel about it. Rebecca, who's actually the home team in this game?
Barcelona.
I mean, what the actual Barcelona fans feel of that. Are they losing home advantage in terms of winning La Liga? I mean, if they lose the league by a point to Barcelona, say they lose to Atletico Madrid, because maybe it feels more like a 50-50 game with it being in the States. I mean, then you end up losing the league by a point. You've played, in my eyes, one less home game. That's the way I'd be thinking if I was Liverpool and we were playing Manchester United and we were supposed to be at Anfield. Well, then I'd be thinking, well, we played at Old Trafford in the season and our home game is at a neutral venue. You know, I think it'd be very tough to do. Listen, it'll probably going to happen one day, but I think it'll be a long time before that happens in England. I think the reaction from supporters would be not good. Be very difficult to make it happen.
Yeah, I agree with Cara, but there's a second thing, which is also the finances of the Spanish game are not healthy. You know, Barcelona themselves have had to forward sell their rights in different sectors of the club's financial sort of, if you like, performance over the next sort of like 10 years. So what they have to do is try and shift the dial towards the Premier League. So basically, I think that what they're doing, and the reason Barcelona are probably volunteering to go and do this, is to say, look, we need to take a gamble here, we need to take a risk, we need to go and try and close that gap to Premier League and the other clubs in the Premier League, because we're going to die in the Spanish game if we don't do something big quickly. They're falling behind. And so that's why they're doing it. And, you know, I have no problem with them doing it. It's their league and it's, you know, they can do what they want, obviously, in that league to try and drive revenues. It would be absolutely not accepted in the Premier League and something that we would all be quite vocal against. And just purely because I think there is a point whereby you just don't cross. And for me, it's the thin end of the wedge. It's what comes next if you're accepting that a game is in the US. It's the fairness and competitiveness of the game. We don't need in the Premier League to take those types of risk and to do those types of things. In my view, we already have competitions, which I think, I wouldn't have a problem with. If I was the FA Cup at this moment in time, as an example, and then the FA Cup is an unbelievable competition in our country. It's got the greatest history, but it has struggled for an identity in the last 10, 12, 13, 14 years. I don't know what's happened to it, but it just seems to have lost its way. The Carabao Cup, I think, has grown in strength, but the FA Cup could be, at some point in the future, that could be a gamble, because the distribution of money would be greater than to smaller clubs that take part in the competition in the earlier rounds. So maybe that's something that could happen. I don't think people would kick off as much about that, but the Premier League and the EFL games, the League 2, League 1, Championship games, no, I don't think that's ever going to work. But I'm not advocating the FA Cup, by the way. I'm just saying that's something that I could see happening and being brought forward.
I think that could certainly work a lot more than the Premier League, because I keep getting involved in this home and away thing, because I think the only way you could do it, I could see, would seem fair, was if it was a neutral game. So maybe one of the semi-finals of an FA Cup, maybe the final of the Carabao Cup, or maybe in the future something. I mean, you're pulling faces, Rebecca, but
I think that's
for me,
worse, Jamie. I think,
not a chance. No chance it's worse. It's not worse.
The FA Cup but the FA Cup's more traditional, older than the Premier League.
It's not about for me. It's not about tradition. It's about fairness. Now, I can't see how, if there was two teams going to America for a Premier League game and they only played 37 Premier League games at home, and then they played one as a neutral venue, but every other team in the league played home and away over 38 games, that to me doesn't seem right. I mean, if you've just got two teams, it's only affecting two teams, whether it's a semi-final or a final in the future, maybe I can see that. I've said for years, the Community Shield is the first thing that you try, because it's a semi-trophy. It's people. So the first thing for me would be to make the Community Shield the first one. But for me, going forward, and listen, there's things that happen now that if you look back at 30, 40 years ago, you couldn't believe were going to happen in football. So we can't think that this is the end of football. It is going to progress. It is going to move on. At some stage, if the NFL are bringing games over here and La Liga are doing, the Premier League are going to get involved in somehow, or the English game. And I just think, for fairness, I think a neutral venue of a cup tie would be a lot better than a Premier League game.
I just think the FA Cup semi-finals have given people like me as Palace fans some of the greatest days of my football supporting life. And the idea that some people wouldn't get that because they maybe couldn't afford to travel to America just makes me sad. But I know what you mean. You have to give it, it's going to move forward. Something's going to happen. Community Shield for me is an absolute shoo-in.
This episode of It's Called Soccer is brought to you by Peloton. Now, I thought I'd seen it all in training sessions back in my Liverpool days. But nowadays, the club are partnered with Peloton. And I know the players are finding those Peloton drills a lot more challenging than they thought they'd be. And trust me, this is a team who faced some tough sessions over the years. If you want the same kind of challenge, Peloton's instructors have got you covered. Take Bex. She's run marathons under 3 hours, does ultras, she's relentless. And if it's strength training you want, some of Peloton's shortest classes push you the hardest. It really reminds me of those intense workouts we put through at Melwood. Although it's used by professional teams around the world, it's not just for the pros. Peloton is perfect for anyone looking to level up their game. And you know how I love a little bit of healthy competition? Well, on Peloton, you can see your mates on the leaderboard in real time and make sure you get the bragging rights. Find your push. Find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com.
It's Called Soccer is sponsored by SeatGeek. Okay, everyone, we're right in the thick of sports season. The new NBA and NHL seasons are underway, the NFL's in full swing, and we've reached the MLS Cup playoffs. It is all happening. Whatever elite sport you're into, get your tickets sorted with SeatGeek. I've been checking out the app, and it's got everything I need to get to a game. And even better, you can use the code ICS10 to get 10% off any tickets on SeatGeek. That is right, 10% off any ticket, whether you're a new customer or not. Sports, concerts, festivals, you name it. SeatGeek makes it simple to find the best tickets. They've got a rating system from 1 to 10, so just look for the green dots. Green means a great deal, red means bad. Nice and easy, right? So grab your phone, open the SeatGeek app, and add the code ICS10 to your account. Do not hang about though, because this offer's not here for long, and those games are coming thick and fast. Remember, that's code ICS10 in the app for 10% off tickets at SeatGeek, up to a maximum of $20 off. Get your tickets now. So delighted to welcome Fulham and US men's national team left back Antonee Robinson to It's Called Soccer. Antonee, thank you so much for joining us. It's so incredible to be able to introduce you as not just the 2023-24 Fulham player of the season, but also somebody who I think everybody knows is famous for flying down that left wing and attacking, but also the big stat that everyone's been talking about is that 80 interceptions last season, which is 15 more than any other player in the Premier League. It is quite the feat what you're doing at Fulham and with the US men's national team at the moment. So it's wonderful to have you on It's Called Soccer. Let me get started by asking you, you're 27 years of age, Antonee. Are you where you thought you would be?
It's great. Thanks for the introduction, by the way. I think, I don't know, it's a difficult one to answer because I remember signing for Everton at 11 years old, just playing Sunday League and thinking, I'm a joker, I'm going to be the best player in the world, I'm going to play for Everton at 16, life's going to be easy. And then through the academy, didn't go down that path, and I didn't really think, I'm going to be playing professional football. I didn't really see that path for me, so different points in my life, I probably wouldn't have assumed that, now I'd be 100-odd Premier League appearances deep, nearly 50 international games. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of myself for where I've reached, but I still think I've got more in me as well.
You look like you were born to be a fullback, Antonee. Was that always the plan?
No, I don't think anyone started as a fullback.
Jeez, the disrespect.
I used to be, I idolised Henri growing up. I was attacking player, left winger, right winger, top scorer, through Sunday League and stuff, signed for Everton as a winger. And then I think I was about 15 and someone got injured and they were just like, oh, you're left-footed, can you just drop back and play there? And then still got to attack, but learned to, enjoy the defending side of it. And it just kind of stuck with me then, really.
And speak to me about your background. We spoke before we got on about Everton, but you sound like the poshest Scouser I've ever heard. I mean, can I borrow that voice for TV?
Yeah, everyone will love that. I was born in Milton Keynes. Moved to Liverpool when I was 4 years old. Moved back for a year, then moved back to Liverpool. Obviously signed for Everton and stuff. Background-wise, my dad was born in Nottingham. Later moved to the States with his grandma, who's Jamaican. So, a lot of influences going on there and moving about. So, yeah, the accent, it's never been that strong. Obviously, when I'm with my friends and stuff, it comes out a little bit more. And then you go and play in the States and you're with lads who wouldn't be able to understand the Scouse accent. So I have to slow down and speak a little bit more calmly. But yeah, that's about it really.
Anthony, just talking about that background, one of the sort of things that gets said about US players is sometimes that maybe they're not sort of tough as maybe players from around the world just because of how football is over there. Does that, obviously that background that you have growing up in Liverpool, can you give us a bit of sense of how you feel about that? Does your background in Liverpool and upbringing in Liverpool from a football perspective give you that added advantage maybe?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, growing up in Liverpool, I was no stranger to, if I was just running around the pitch, dribbling with the ball all the time, people would just volley me. So yeah, definitely no stranger to that. And I remember even my first international call up with the under-18s, and putting in like tackles that I just thought were normal, like hard tackles, and like the guys in training, they were fuming at me and like looking at me like I was weird. So there is a bit of that. I do think like the older we've got and the US lads, there is some of the tough boys on there. But English football, there definitely is a sense of like kicking people if they're showing off and whatnot.
Anthony, I want to ask you for a little bit of advice. You played fullback for Wigan, yeah?
Yeah.
My son's doing a job at the moment at fullback for Wigan, and when you were at Wigan, you almost got a move to AC Milan. I mean, how does that even come about? Obviously, your great performances. I'm not knocking you by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, that's some journey, that isn't it, from Wigan to AC Milan, and you just couldn't quite get the deal across the line. So, if you're playing at Wigan, is the hope for everyone that AC Milan are watching?
It was obviously a strange one that kind of came out the blue, and it's surreal for a lad, who's playing at Wigan to be on the phone to Maldini saying he's looking forward to working with me and things like that. Definitely doesn't seem right.
Me and Gary could have done with a call to Maldini at some stages through our career, actually.
Anthony, let me ask you a little bit about your manager right now at Fulham, Marco Silva. What a job he's doing, but also how much does it help you in your game that Silva himself was a fullback?
It helps a lot, like the attention to detail that he puts into training in general, but especially for the fullbacks, just because he has that perspective. At times when we're training, he can get really, really annoyed at us if we're not doing the right things and not in the right places. So it definitely helps us. It gives us more of a perspective of what he wants and where he wants us to be. If we're not doing something that he wants, he tries to rectify that as quick as possible. I feel like it's helped me bring my game on massively because growing up, sort of that tactical things like positioning and things like that, they didn't really come natural to me, but I feel like in the gaffer's system now, I'd kind of know where I need to be at all times, and it's simplified for me a lot more.
Anthony, when I speak about Marco Silva, I think Gary will back me up on this one. For a long time, I've always rated him as a manager when he first came into the Premier League at Hull, and I actually think he's the most underrated manager in the Premier League, really. For the job that he's done at Fulham. Obviously, it didn't work out for him at Everton. I mean, you're talking about what he does for you as a full-back, but are we talking about one of the top managers in the Premier League? Because his record sort of speaks for itself.
Under his sort of tutelage in the Premier League, I think we've done outstanding. We've shown numerous times that when we're on our best form, we can compete with anyone. We play some really nice football. So yeah, I think that's credit to him and his staff at how they've got us working, and I think he's a very ambitious manager. He puts a lot of faith in us, and I think he's going to keep trying to drive this team to be the best that we can be.
Anthony, I obviously watch the Premier League every single week and marvel at what the fullbacks do, but obviously marvel also at what the wingers do as well. There's always a player when you're a fullback that gives you problems that you think, oh God, I always find it quite difficult against him. Who's that player in the league for you that you play against that you think, bloody hell, he's hard work?
To be fair, there's a couple. There's not too many wingers that I've been up against who directly 1v1 get the better of me. I'd like to think I hold my own quite well, but it's the players, people like Bernardo Silva and Cole Palmer, players like that who just pick up like horrible positions to go and mark, and like they're really aware of where they can get their space there. They're really difficult players because if they pull me out of position and someone else runs into that space, it just makes it a long day.
How early in the week, Anthony, do you look at who you're going to be up against? Is it as soon as the last game's done, you're then looking for the next one and you start working based on who you think will play as their winger?
Yeah, I'd say Tuesday or Wednesday. That's when we start like actually in training going through, what we think their team's going to be, how we're going to play, how we're going to stop what they're good at, how we're going to exploit weaknesses for any team. And then for me personally, I try not to, because I don't know exactly who's going to be playing every time. I try not to overcomplicate it looking at individual players' clips. I'll leave that to sort of when we see the team sheet on the day, look at a few clips for a few minutes and see, right, this is what he wants to do, keep it simple, and try and avoid that.
Anthony, on this podcast a week or so ago, me and Gary were up in arms at the fact that England were having Thomas Tuchel as manager, as a foreign manager. What was your feeling as a player for the US national team that Pochettino was coming in?
I was really looking forward to it, to be fair. I think in terms of who was available to appoint at that time, I don't think there was many better managers out there we could have got. And his track record spoke for itself, so I was really looking forward to it. There wasn't too much of, as much of an uproar in the States that I seen that, it wasn't an American manager, whereas here the opinions kind of split on whether England should be managed by an English manager and things like that, which, everyone has their own opinion, they're entitled to it, but I was really excited to get working with Poch, and then when I met him and we've joined up with camp, he seems like a great guy and a good coach, so I'm hoping that we go on to be really successful together.
So you don't agree with Gary's opinion on Tuchel?
What was Gary's opinion? What was your opinion? What were you saying?
We both said he was a great coach. I just said I was concerned about the lack of opportunities for English managers in the Premier League, but also now obviously at international level, if we're not promoting English coaching. I felt a little bit sad around the fact that English coaching was basically sort of not being looked after and that we're struggling with it.
Was one of the reasons, though, Gary, because obviously people who've had big jobs in the past who were English never did as well as they thought they would do. You're part of the problem.
It is one of the concerns. Should we let Anthony answer?
It's one of them. I think they've obviously appointed a very good manager. I'm kind of biased because Tommy's assistant used to be one of my coaches at Wigan, and I know how good Anthony Barry is. Scouse connection there as well, but. In that sense, I think there's a very short window until the World Cup, and they've went with a manager who they think can get results and get the job done. So I don't see any issue with it. Obviously, I'll let the English people decide whether they're angry at that or not.
English people, I love it.
Yeah, I'm not counting myself on that one.
Let me ask you about being in that America camp with the World Cup, like you say, just a little over 18 months away. You're going to be asked a million times, but to be in the camp with those other American players who are building up to what is a once in a lifetime. Some players never get that chance to play in a home World Cup. How much are you guys talking about it? What is the vibe? What is the chat?
There's little conversations about how excited we are and stuff. Obviously, we know where our fixtures are going to be now, like West Coast. So there's time to be excited. We've kind of obviously going through what happened in the summer with Copa America not being as successful as we wanted to then getting a new coach. The focus is all kind of quite near. Like we've still got, I think 2 tournaments coming up before that. We've got our like CONCACAF Nations League and then Gold Cup in the summer. So we're kind of the focus is more on that than the World Cup. But I think the overall arching thing in the background in everyone's mind is that they want to be doing as well as they possibly can to make sure that they are at that World Cup, because I think not just in general in terms of for the US, but it's going to be one of the biggest events in probably football history for me.
Anthony, so far this season's been a good season. Last couple of results maybe not going your way, but what at Fulham is clicking and who is clicking, certainly up front for you this season?
Like you just teed me up then, but Raul obviously finding his goal scoring form has been a big help to us. I think to the start of the season, a lot of the attackers have kind of chipped in with goals and assists, so it's been spread out, but Raul kind of feeling his confident self and playing well, it helps the team having that focal point and thinking, right, we've got goals in us. You go into games a lot more confident when your striker's confident and you think, we're gonna find goals here, we'll be fine.
Anthony, just a question about fullback. I mean, it sort of, I always use this word in Carol last, mesmerises me what fullbacks are asked to do nowadays and what they do. You said that when you were growing up, no one wants to be a fullback, but that's obviously changed now. It's one of the most creative positions on the pitch. Are you just given free licence to go forward? Is it when the ball's just on your side? Or are you allowed to go forward when the ball's basically on either side of the pitch?
So for at Fulham, it's pretty much if the ball's on my side of the pitch, I can do what I want. If I'm tired, just rest in my position. If I'm feeling good, just fly down the wing. When it's on the other side, I've got to be a bit more, central and balanced, because that the way the gaffer sets us up, we'll have like me and a midfielder defending sort of in case they counter or whatever, and just being that balance. For the US. Previously, I used to pretty much be able to go wherever I wanted. If the right back was crossing it, I was getting in at the back post. So slightly different, but I do enjoy the role I play. I love when, we've kind of built up on one side, got the team over to the right, and I see that we're about to switch it, and I just, turn the jets on and go, sport on the overlap, and I'm either, pretty much a decoy run, or I get played in and get to cross someone. But yeah, it seems like fullback's changing now. You've either got players like Trent who are pretty much centre mids dictating from fullback, or you see City and Arsenal now, their fullbacks, a lot of them are centre halves kind of converted. So, the kind of modern fullback I used to think I was coming through, I'm kind of dying out now as a species, I think.
Gary, did you ever turn the jets on when you were playing for Man United, the fullback?
No, I flicked the parachute switch.
Anthony, just one final question. Would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Christian Pulisic and how well he's doing in Italy right now. Have you been keeping up with that, watching him? How have you felt he's got on?
Yeah, try and keep up to date with how everyone's getting on, but it's kind of hard to miss what he's doing just because he kind of scores every week at the minute. But yeah, it's amazing. I'm just really happy for him that he went from a not very nice club situation at Chelsea to then going to Milan and changing it around for him. And he whenever I've spoken to him in camp, he just feels so happy there. He loves the club, and he feels confident. The manager has a lot of trust in him. And he's just one of them players. He's always had the ability. There's no question about that. It's just being put in a team where he's confident and given the license to do what he's good at, and everyone's seeing him flourish now.
Okay, a couple of questions just quickly to finish. Bryce is a Fulham fan from Colorado, and his question is...
My question for you is, if you could give one Fulham player an American citizenship to play on the USMNT national team, who would it be? Good luck for the rest of the season. Come on, you Whites.
Oh,
good question.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Trying to think. A lot of our centre backs keep getting injured, so I'd probably give it to Calvin. Give it to Calvin Bassey, just because then I kind of had the partnership with Tim Ream where me and him just played together, and Tim's a joke, but he's 37. He's not going to do that forever. So if I could transfer that to Calvin, I'd have a double playing partner again, and it'd be good.
Good answer. Okay, now Fred, who is actually Bryce's father, who asked the first question, also from Colorado, he says...
Question I have is, what are your team goals, do you think, at this point in the season? Where do you guys want to be at the end of the campaign? And also, what are some of your personal goals for this season? Best of luck. See you in London.
Team goals is definitely, push to be, higher up in the table, so that, when we get towards the end, we can look at competing for Europe, competing for maybe a cup run, a trophy, which will have to be the FA Cup now. And then personal goals, just to, as always, just try and improve on how I did last year, try and better the performances that I've been putting in, and score my first Premier League goal. That's up there as well.
Okay, and the final question is courtesy of Jamie Carragher's mate, and somebody you may know, Anthony.
Does Jamie Carragher have a mate?
Antonee Robinson, you're killing it at Fulham. Jamie Carragher asked me to submit a question. I told him I got you, say less. I want to know what your favorite Fulham memory is. What is the memory you're going to tell your kids or grandkids one day?
My favourite Fulham memory? You know what? It's kind of in theme with the weekend, but I'll say in the Carabao Cup last season, scoring a penalty at Goodison in the penalty shootout.
Oh. Anthony, we wish you loads of luck against Everton this weekend. We are so grateful for you joining It's Called Soccer. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anthony. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. When we're not feeling our usual selves and try to carry on life as normal, it can feel like we're hiding behind a mask. After we won the treble back in 1999, I had some personal issues in my life. I was going out onto the pitch and trying to forget about my problems and focus on my football, hiding them behind the shirt I wore. But then, I hit a bad patch and made some mistakes in a big game and lost my confidence against Vasco da Gama, and I couldn't hide anymore. I spoke to a psychologist who helped me get back on track and taught me the coping strategies that I still use to this very day. Therapy isn't just for people who've been through major life changes. It's a way to learn positive coping skills and learn how to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. It's entirely online and designed to fit your schedule. You just fill out a short questionnaire and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist. And if you ever need to switch, you can at no extra charge. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/ICS today to get 10% off your first month.
All right, chaps, we've got to talk Arsenal against Liverpool. Massive game Sunday. I think you'll both be at it. We'll be covering it, obviously, on NBC. Gary, Arsenal are going to be without, I think, Saka, probably, Odegaard, Timber, Calafiori, and obviously Saliba as well. That is a huge loss for them. Coming off the situation, the game against Bournemouth, the red card, discipline situation, all of those narratives. Who for you is favourites, Gary?
You know something? I feel like we talked about this yesterday. They're falling into the trap of thinking that all of a sudden every club has injuries. Every club has players missing. I accept that they might not like the idea that Saka or Odegaard are obviously very big players, and Saliba's obviously out with self-inflicted red card. But I'm not accepting any excuses ahead of Sunday. I'm expecting Arsenal, who at this moment in time finished above Liverpool last season, we're 8 games in, to basically go out onto that pitch and think that they should win that game. That's what I'm expecting. If they're going to change their mentality from a team that are coming second and are a really good side, they've made great strides, to a team that are going to win the league, they cannot do anything other on Sunday than go and win that football match. Now, Liverpool are in really good form. They've got a strong defence. They've got players up front who can win any match in a moment, and they've got a midfield, to be honest with you, who are so willing it's untrue. So it's not going to be easy, but go and win the game. I cannot listen to excuses. I don't want any excuses from Arsenal fans. I don't want any excuses from Mikel Arteta. He's built a squad there that should be able to compete over a season, and 4 or 5 players missing is something that he would have expected or should have expected at a certain point. Last year, it was all season he had it consistent with his team selection, and that's very fortunate. This season, it might not be quite like that. Go and win the league. Go and win the league. You know, I remember times where we had 4 or 5 players missing, where we played Phil Neville and John O'Shea in midfield, or we had centre-backs, I was centre-back and someone else. That just happens. You've got to get through those moments if you're going to win a league. City are doing it at the moment without Kevin De Bruyne, without Kyle Walker. They've had other players missing for periods of the season. I'm sorry, I really am steadfast on this. They should have beat Bournemouth with 10 men, and they should go and beat Liverpool on Sunday if they're serious about winning the league. If they want Liverpool to come and walk all over them and go and get 3 points, then they're proving to us that they haven't got the mentality to win the league. Go and win the league, beat Liverpool with 4 or 5 injuries, and change the momentum and the thinking behind what everyone's saying at this moment in time. That's where I'm at with this match.
That's interesting, because mentality's been something that everyone has
It's
thought,
here.
Jamie. Arsenal now do have. So where do you stand on that?
No, what Arsenal had last season was, I think we all knew what their best 11 was, and I think 8 or 9 of the best 11 played over 30 Premier League games. So they had it really in their own hands last season. Gary's right about Kevin De Bruyne, the best player in the Premier League for the last 4 or 5 years, missed half a season. Liverpool's injury record last season, I think, was only better, if you know, I'm not sure it's the right terminology, or worse, was Tottenham. The only team in the Premier League, I think, who had worse injuries than Liverpool, and they found a way of staying in there and fighting. And there was no way in the world Arsenal were going to have it exactly the same this season, because, of course, you can look at your sports science team, but there's an element to look with injuries as well. And with Gary, to a certain extent, you know, in terms of excuses, but I think anybody would miss the best. I mean, we are talking about probably Arsenal's best players in terms of Saliba, Saka, Odegaard, and I think when you're going up against a title rival, I think that is a blow when you're missing your best players. But as he said, and he knows better than anyone how many titles he's won, how many tough games you go up against. You've got to find a way to win in that game, and I think Arsenal can still find a way to win in that game. But the thing going into the game was, it reminds me a little bit of this fixture, but 3 months on. Last season in January, Arsenal were in the same situation. They were 4 points behind Liverpool going into this game, and if they'd have lost, I think most people would have felt they were out the title race. And even going in this early, because Manchester City are playing Southampton at the weekend, they'll have gone 6 points clear of Arsenal before this game kicks off. If Liverpool were to win the game, I struggle to think of anyone associated with Arsenal, whether supporters, players or management, who will keep the belief they can win the league, even at this early stage. Because when you're 6 points behind a juggernaut like Manchester City with, 26, 27 games to go, that is a lot to turn around. Now, we would never have said that in the days when me and Gary played. But the situation you find yourselves in right now as a team, and you want to overcome Manchester City. Liverpool are the only team who've really stopped Manchester City in these last few years. Liverpool won 26 of the first 27 league games and drew the other one away at Old Trafford. That's what Liverpool had to do to beat Manchester City. And if Arsenal find themselves 6 points behind on Sunday night of Manchester City with 27 games to go, I think that's a very difficult place to find yourself in.
And they'd also be 7 points behind Liverpool. Do you agree, Gary? If they're 7 behind Liverpool and they're 6 behind City, they're out the title race on October the whatever it would be, 28th?
I wouldn't be as stark as that. I wouldn't be as stark as that, because I do think sometimes you can sort of, when you win your first league, sometimes things can go wrong for parts of the season. Arsenal might be having their dip now. I do think that City and Liverpool will have a dip. I think it will come at some point. We know City can, to be fair, get towards that last 2 months and then just kick on and put the afterburners on. I wouldn't say that, but what it would do, it would tell me about their resilience and their mentality. I don't know whether look, the Arsenal players and the manager aren't saying what I'm feeling here and what I'm saying, but I just get there's a sense that we're already making excuses after the end of the game. Oh, the questions are all, they haven't got Saka, they haven't got Saliba, they haven't got Ødegaard. Yeah, I honestly, they need to quell that. I hope that noise that exists externally is not getting into their heads, because honestly, you'll have been the same. I never went onto a pitch, irrespective of what players were missing, thinking that we didn't have to win at United. We still had to win. And that's what Arsenal must believe, and that's believing it deep, deep down. Find a way to win this game on Sunday and shift the whole conversation back to them. And basically start to ask a question of Liverpool. Start to ask a question of Arne Slot, start to ask a question of Liverpool, because Liverpool have been fantastic so far this season. I thought they were brilliant in that last half an hour last week against Chelsea. We're not at the best by any stretch of the imagination, but they demonstrated really good game management and control of that game without actually, to be fair, dominating it in a way which was brilliant to watch. But they did demonstrate experience, and if they do that on Sunday, they could go there and have a very good day if Arsenal aren't quite at it.
In terms of asking questions of Liverpool, some people are saying, Liverpool have had an easy start. And Arne Slot himself, Jamie, has said, let's look at it after we've played everybody. But my favourite line of the week, which I'm going to use at least 7 times at the weekend, is that Arne Slot now has had the best start in all competitions by any manager in English top flight history, with 11 wins out of 12. That is crazy. There is no way, Jamie, you thought it would be quite this easy and seamless.
No, not at all. And I think the real fear for everybody, I think, associated with Liverpool, was that they were getting it rammed down the throats, that the effect when Alex Ferguson left United, when Arsene Wenger left Arsenal, Jurgen Klopp's a similar sort of figure, and almost that fear of, is everything going to fall away? Never mind being in contention to win a title, is everything almost going to fall away? And we're going to go back to being a team, what we were before Jurgen Klopp came in, which was a team hoping to make the Champions League, but realistically going to get in the Europa League. I think when you talk about easy starts, I know the managers said this, I'm not a great believer in that. I believe any football club, even if you're a top one, if you win the games you're supposed to win, but we all think they should win, you'll have a good season. If you beat the teams around you, you'll have a great season. And when we talk about the easy start for Liverpool, I know we're talking in the Premier League, but playing away at Manchester United is a derby game for Liverpool. To go there and win, was it 3-0, was it? Liverpool won there. 3-0. They went to AC Milan. I know it wasn't the Premier League, but an AC Milan aren't, the Fabio Capello AC Milan. But they were getting beat 1-0 in the San Siro after 5 minutes. They come back and win 3-1. Last night in Leipzig, second in the Bundesliga, they win the game. Chelsea make it 1-1 at Anfield, playing really well. They go on and win the game. So this idea that they've had it easy, I mean, they've still done well to win those games. You've just watched Manchester City, arguably the best team in the world, get taken to the last minute against Wolves. So the Premier League's not easy. You go away to Crystal Palace, was Liverpool's last away game in the Premier League. You win 1-0. It's a tough place to go. Yeah. It's a great result. So I don't buy all this. And listen, I'm not having a go at you, Rebecca, by any means, but any game in the Premier League, if you're on a good run of form and you're beating teams you're supposed to be, it's not easy. So yes, they've made a brilliant start. There'll be tougher propositions to come, and this could arguably the toughest, along with Manchester City away. But if Liverpool lost the game on Sunday, I wouldn't think, the first test they fell away. Every game's a test when you're a big club. Everyone's trying to, bring you down.
All right, give me a prediction, Gary. Just a scoreline's fine.
I'm going to go Arsenal 2-1, because I don't see Liverpool going 7. I don't see Liverpool going 7 points clear of them.
Okay.
What? Sorry, I've got to pull him back. I've got no problem with him choosing the result.
I'm not allowed to have a prediction. I'm not allowed.
You can't.
I'm not allowed to have a prediction.
What's the 7 points got to do with anything?
I just don't see Liverpool going 7 points clear.
Well, they will if they win. It's whether they win the game or it's got to not become 7 points clear, 8 points clear, or 2 points clear. You're talking absolute nonsense.
You do understand the theory behind predictions is feeling, don't you? It's feeling, it's instinct. My instinct is I don't see on Sunday evening at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the UK, and basically 1:30 in New York. I don't see the result. I don't see the league table saying Liverpool 24 points and Arsenal 17. That's my instinct.
So what I'm saying is, would you have still gone for that prediction if Liverpool were 2 points behind Arsenal?
So in my experience of when I've seen these games in the past, and I'm going not just off my instinct today, is that I think sometimes when you have these games, like 10 games in, you go, Man United can go 7 points clear of Arsenal in 1998. It doesn't tend to happen. There's a motivation of the team that are desperately not wanting to go 7 points behind. It gives them that edge that the team that are 4 points in front don't quite have at this time of the year. Does that make sense?
That makes sense a little bit.
Thank you very much.
You explained it a little bit better now. I'm going to go for 1-1. I think Arsenal having all some of the best players out will obviously affect them slightly. They weren't great in midweek in the Champions League, but I still think it's a tough place to go, Arsenal. I think the crowd will get behind them because of the reasons Gary's mentioned. People may be feeling that they may be slightly underdogs, so I think it'll be 1-1.
Okay, all right, chaps.
What do you think, Rebecca?
Why 1-1? Where's that come from? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. 1-1.
Because I can't see Arsenal only being 1 point behind Liverpool on a Sunday night.
I think it'll be a draw as well. Maybe 2-2. Chaps, just before we go, little line for you. So you might have seen, and everybody listening and watching, that Luka Modric, who at 39 years old and 40 days, he made history by becoming the oldest player to appear in a competitive match for Real Madrid. And Francesco Totti this week talking about how he's still receiving offers from Serie A clubs he said that he would take him 2 or 3 months training to get back to playing fitness. And Gary, a little birdie told me that on your overlap on tour show, you actually said that you reckon you could play a Premier League game. I think it started with it saying you could play a Premier League game, and then it just very slowly got down to about 10 minutes in a League 2 game.
I think I could play one Premier League game now, just one.
Okay.
Can we do that on the overlap? One Premier League game?
Against Man United.
Jamie, I like it.
I want 20 minutes in the Premier League game.
I don't want to play no more.
Who against? Who could you call?
League 2, 20 minutes.
League 2?
League 2, 20 minutes. No, just something. There is sometimes I look at a game and think, what would I be like out there now for 10 minutes? Now, to be honest with you, I'm not ignorant enough to realise that the game has moved on a mountain, because the reason I retired 10, 12 years ago was because I couldn't actually keep up with it then. But it's just the actual feeling of being out there on the pitch for 10 minutes in a Premier League game or a League 2 game at the age of I'm nearly 50. It would be amazing, that, wouldn't it, really? I wonder if you could do that or sort that out almost like a wish.
You are the owner of an EFL club.
Oh yeah, I could sign on, couldn't I? I could just sign myself on for Saturday away at Colchester. Get in.
Have a little go of it.
The Colchester players would be queuing up with their elbows.
Yeah, they would. Jamie, could you still do a little job at the back?
Oh no, I don't even play five-a-side now. No, I'm not arrogant enough as Gary to think I could do that, something like that. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, I think, you know what I do sometimes think I would be able to do? You know when you play like small-sided games in training? I actually think if I was dropped into sort of a Liverpool 8v8 across a pitch, forget the full 11v11, but I think I could last in a game for sort of 15-20 minutes of an 8v8, like a training game.
No, honestly, Joe, it sounds crazy. I think you'd get exposed more in a small-sided game.
Chance.
So let's say we were both playing for Liverpool, which is just the unthinkable. But if you just put me in alongside Van Dijk for 10 minutes at the end of a match, and Robertson, let's say I'd have to move Van Dijk to the right because I'd have to be in between Robertson. I couldn't cover that right hand side when Trent goes forward or into midfield. So Van Dijk's right centre back. I'm sort of there next to him, and then Robertson's left back, just sitting in a little bit. I think 10 minutes you could probably do, Carragher. I reckon you could do that.
I mean, if we had the ball, yeah.
That is the headline. If Gary could just slot himself in alongside Van Dijk.
Gary, that's what we want from the Mail, isn't it? Gary Neville could play alongside Virgil van Dijk for 10 minutes for Liverpool.
Yeah,
This is going to go viral, this episode.
1,000%. All right, chaps, brilliant stuff. Where are you this weekend, by the way? Gary, where are you this weekend?
We've got a game tomorrow together, actually. We've got the Friday night football at Leicester tomorrow, which looking forward to, and then we've got a day off Saturday.
Yep.
And then we're going to Arsenal Liverpool on Sunday. You're at Arsenal Liverpool, Cara, Sunday?
Yeah, I'm always at the big games.
Are you in the studio or are you on the commentary?
I'm in the studio. I'm going to leave you to your own devices in
Thank you
the
very
commentary.
much.
Yeah, we'll be in the studio.
So it's
me, Roy, and Theo.
Yeah, you, Roy and Theo. It's me and Peter Drury on commentary on Sunday, then at Arsenal Liverpool, I suspect.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Guys, have a great weekend. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us on It's Called Soccer. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all the social channels. Leave all your comments. We love to get them. And we will see you next week.
See you soon, everyone.
Bye.